Welcome to Neverwinter, a land of glorious adventure, vast riches, and occasional comic violence. That's right, this week we're talking about the free-to-play MMORPG Neverwinter, developed by Cryptic Studios and published by Perfect World Entertainment. This game is loosely based on 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which itself is loosely based on things like World of Warcraft and EverQuest, and it's kind of getting really meta in here. Released in the middle of 2013, this is a free-to-play MMORPG from the ground up. And honestly, that's my favorite kind. It's designed with free-to-play in mind, which is good. But before I wind up yammering forever and drive this episode to another 25-minute bullshit fest, let's get into the game! Neverwinter takes place in the titular city-state of Neverwinter, located on the edge of the continent of Faerun in the Forgotten Realms. If you've never played Dungeons & Dragons in your life, I basically just said a bunch of meaningless funny words to you. If you have, you're currently judging my pronunciation of all of those funny words. When you get down to how the game plays, it feels pretty reminiscent to the way a lot of other MMOs these days are playing. That kind of third-person shooter / third-person brawler, depending on your class, style of reticle-based combat, which is good. I mean, that's fun. It engages you a lot more than the fucking hotkeys of yore, but still. If you play things like Terra or Pieforge, you're going to feel real familiar here. Combat is based on a reticle system. You've got a bunch of abilities bound to your mouse buttons and keyboard. At-will powers, you just kind of fire off willy-nilly, and counter powers that have a short cooldown, and big, powerful daily powers that come down with huge attack power and annihilate entire waves of enemy units. It's pretty fun and pretty satisfying and generally pretty responsive so long as you got a good connection. You can see the lag sometimes when you are lagging, but there's nothing wrong with that. The combat feels forceful and impactful, and that's really a big part of combat, to be honest with you, because if you get lazy fucking nothing feeling combat, it's just not fun. It's not fun at all. But this combat's good. It feels weighty, it feels powerful, and when you're taking on 5 or 6 dudes at once, it feels great. Although when you're taking down 10 or 15 guys at once, it can kind of devolve into utter total fucking chaos. I have no idea what I'm shooting. Once you break out of combat, though, things start feeling very familiar to other MMORPGs on the market. There's a fairly standard questing system, which allows you to progress through a storyline, with the exception that a lot of the questing zones are actually instanced, so you're kind of going in on your own or maybe with a couple of friends. But there's nothing wrong with that. I kind of enjoy it. The instancing system allows it to be a little bit more personal to you and allows for a little bit more set pieces, which is always fun, gets you a little bit more engaged in the quest. But otherwise, it's the same stuff. Kill 10 baddies here. Save a bunch of loot from over here. Do this other thing over here. I'm not going to get... That doesn't really cover the Foundry quests, which are a totally different beast, but I'm going to get into them in just a moment. Gearing's pretty much the same, acquiring equipment is pretty much the same, you go to dungeons, you complete quests, you do instances, all that good stuff that you're probably pretty used to from other MMORPGs. If I did have one hang-up on this, it is that the gearing system is tied to the class and not an armor type. And what do I mean by that? Well, that means that all of the gear I pick up has to be Scourge Warlock gear. That includes all of my armor pieces, my weapon, my offhand. It all has to be specifically Scourge Warlock gear, because I play a Scourge Warlock. Therefore, if we get a Control Wizard item, it may still be a robe, and my dude still might be fine wearing a robe. I can't put on that robe, though, because I'm a Scourge Warlock, and that's for a Control Wizard, so I don't get it. It can cause some issues where we did an instance on one of the dungeons, and none of us got any loot that was at all relevant towards our classes. I even completed a quest where I got an item for a different class, and it was really, really annoying. It's even got a really nifty enchanting system.
I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what any of this does. I read the tutorial and it's okay. I'm gonna press the button, magic happens.
There's questing zones, dungeons, taverns, all of the good stuff you would probably recognize from other games. But the real draw for this game is not in the questing, it's not in the combat, it's not even in the stories that are told within the game. It's actually something even cooler than that isn't really shown off in any other MMO that exists in the AAA space, and that is the Foundry. The coolest part of Dungeons & Dragons, in my opinion, and I will admit that I'm a dungeon master, is putting together a really cool adventure and story for your friends to go on, to get their loot, to advance through some awesome arcing plotline, and doing it all yourself and building this world. Well, Neverwinter allows you to do that in the MMO space with the Foundry. It's a built-in tool for constructing quests and adventures that can then be put into the game for other players to enjoy. It's really cool, and actually fairly simple to use. Within about an hour, I'd already built myself an interesting zone, and there's a lot of tutorials within the game for it. It's actually really cool. I went on a couple of adventures developed by other players while I was leveling up my little Scourge Warlock for this review, and I had a lot of fun in them. There's some that are, of course, stupid, but there's some that are awesome, similar to most player-generated content. And I think that's the real thing that makes Neverwinter shine, is this ability to create your own stories, the ability to create your own adventures, and then go on other players' adventures, and see the world through somebody else's perspective other than the devs. Now, is this Foundry perfect? Not quite. There's a lot of things I would like to see in the Foundry that would be really cool. Things like deeper levels of enemy customization to develop your real own encounters and boss fights. Most of it is unfortunately prefab at the moment, but I can understand that from a balance perspective. And I can also understand why they control loot from a balance perspective. But the ability to kind of write your own stories, create your own narratives, create your own quest chains that might span multiple dungeons, that's really cool. But of course, the last part we always come to are the free-to-play mechanics, because this is free-to-play and a free-to-play game. That means somewhere there's a free-to-play microtransaction going on. And I can say this is pretty par for the course for free-to-play games in the modern era. You've got Zen, which is your primary free-to-play currency or pay-to-play currency, which you can use to purchase things like additional companions and bonuses and mounts and things like that. Nothing too game-breaking. There are a couple of things that are on a little bit of the questionable side, such as certain companions which can give you a buff. But as far as I understand it, most of that can be acquired in-game already without spending any money. You can also get Astral Diamonds, which are a primary currency acquired through daily quests and adventures, which can then be converted into Zen and vice versa, which is fairly similar to what you can see in stuff like Guild Wars, which is great. That's not bad. That kind of levels the playing field for the free-to-play. It may take a little bit longer to get those cool buy-to-play items, but you can still get them on a free-to-play side. So all in all, in a conclusion, I'd say Neverwinter is a pretty solid little MMORPG and a pretty good diversion. It's a good time. You can enjoy yourself within it. The combat's fun, although, like all things in an MMORPG, it will eventually go stale. And the world around it is pretty fun to engage in as well. And the Foundry could potentially build up hundreds of hours of fun in itself, making quests, doing your own stories. That's really cool. But that's all for me today for Neverwinter in this episode of Free to Play. Hopefully I gave you a good overview of the game, maybe enticed you a little bit to try it out for yourself. It's good times. I enjoyed it. It's a good little diversion. Probably not something I'd stick with permanently, but it's a good time. I hear the end game might be a little bit tough, though. On the other side of things, I wanted to just say thank you for watching this video again. If you are a returning viewer or a brand new one, thank you very much. Every view, I love it. I love to hear from you guys in the comments. If you enjoy this, please like, comment, subscribe, all that. Another thing I wanted to say, I have decided to put together a Steam group for people who enjoy the show, or just people who want to fucking play video games. It's just a Steam group. It's on Steam. It's it's Orange Hats, or at steamgroups.com, whatever the fuck. I'll put a link in the description, and you guys can join up if you want. We're gonna, I don't know, right now it's just kind of a place for people to get together and play video games. So, you know, there's that. And, you know, hopefully you join up and enjoy it, and we have a little fun, and we play some video games together. That'll be good times. I love playing video games with people. But thank you very much again for watching. You guys are awesome. I love it. And you all have a great one.
I'm a fire in my ladle!